Alright, so I decided to start a series of videos on basics on river fishing. So it's kind of designed for people new to river fishing, but also I think maybe I have a lot of tips I can give that could be interesting to people with experience. So I'm going to be coming out here doing a few of these, kind of like a series, and I want to try to cover different conditions, different times of the year as well. Right now I think we're what is it, the 10th or 11th of October, so we're in early fall. It's been really mild though, it's pretty warm. As you can see, I'm in a t-shirt today, and this app is giving me problems, but it should be still recording. So yeah, we had a really hot, dry summer. The water is really low, it's really bad conditions. The level's back up. It's still on the low side for this time of year, but it's better than it was before. And over the last couple weeks, I started to get a lot more activity with fishing. I fished almost every day this summer, and usually here, and weeks and weeks without catching hardly anything except small little bait fish. So I came out today. Yesterday I had a good day. I caught my new personal best pike here, and I thought to try for a pike again. This time of year is really good for it, but I can fish with 2 poles here, so I like to kind of keep options open. You know, I don't really normally target a specific fish when I'm fishing, especially on a river, because you never know what you're going to get here. It's one of the things I love about it too. You know, it's there's so many possibilities, and it changes all the time. So this time I brought 3 poles with me. I have this one I'm going to set up. I started to already with a waggler float, wobbler float, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to put a really small hook on here to try to catch some bait fish. In the summertime, that's all I could catch, even when I didn't want to catch them. Now it's cooling down, and it can be really difficult to catch a bait fish. I checked my freezer today, and all I had left was I think a Rhode Algon, a roach, a big one. So I'm going to end up throwing this on the line. I used one about the same size yesterday. I just had the head cut off, and that's why I got that big pike. That was the last fish I have in the freezer for bait fish though, so I want to catch some and stock up today, hopefully. Try to at least. That's the thing, when you really need bait fish, especially this time of year and as it gets colder, that can be I remember last week I was here for like an hour trying to catch a bait fish, and I actually caught a pike on a tiny worm with a maggot on, or tiny hook with a maggot on it. I guess a bait fish was on there. It was on a float, turned around, and there was a pike. It was a small one, like this big, but I actually managed to catch it. So yeah, I've got one line out already. Usually I do that as soon as I get here. I get a line out. That's got a pop-up boilie on it, on a method feeder, and I throw a couple maggots on the hook too. That kind of just tells me if there's any activity, and so far I haven't heard anything, any bites, because I have a bell on the pole. And so I'm gonna keep casting that out in a few spots and try to find where the bait fish are, but usually with a float that's the easiest way. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish setting this up. I just used a rubber stopper. You don't even have to use a sliding float for catching bait fish. I mean, just a fixed float's fine, unless you're trying to cast really far and deeper, you know, or just get it. You want your line really deep, which the river isn't so deep here, so it's not necessary. So all I'm going to do with this is put a swivel and a really small hook and a few split shots to balance it out. Meanwhile, yeah, I'm just kind of, you know, being optimistic. Maybe something bites on the other line. And I'm going to try this for a little while. If I don't catch any bait fish after 20-30 minutes, I'll give up for a while and put the pole aside, maybe try later. And I've got my other rod and reel here, which is a heavier duty rod with a braided line. That's what I use for pike fishing and big carp. So that's going to be ready to go when I decide to throw a bait fish on. I've got bite alarm there set up, and I'm going to I like to do ledgering more than float fishing, because I get kind of tired of constantly, it's not a lot of current today, but there is a current, so with float fishing I get a little bit tired of always having to recast and worry about it getting tangled and keeping an eye on it, whereas ledgering seems to work pretty good for me. So I'm going to stick with that for today probably. I've had luck with floats for pike as well, but it's a bit more work. I get kind of lazy with that stuff. I like to be able to just kind of sit and relax and watch the pools. Today, like I said, the current's slow, really slow. There's a lot of leaves falling into the water though, so when it's like that, I check my lines really often, and usually, especially if there's no bites at all, you know. I'll check it every like 5 to 10 minutes, which I'm due to do right now, and there's been no bites. I mean, with a pop-up oily, I'm not expecting any bait fish on it, but if they'll bite at the maggot, that's usually the indication. And I'll just check it. Last time I checked, there was a leaf stuck on the hook, so you know, sometimes when that's the case, there's something wrong. I'm going to throw some food on, more food onto the method feeder. Try to keep attracting the fish. And you know, with the pop-up boilie, this kind of setup, method feeder with pop-up boilie on a hair rig, you can catch anything from carp to bream to chub or tench. And I've even caught a barsh on it, a really big barsh here with the pop-up boilie. But it was basically as soon as they hit the water, so just saw some movement and attacked it, I'm sure. Generally, you can expect to catch, you know, carp, this species, tench, chub, bream with pop-up boilies. But I mean, I've caught some of the crazy shit on things you would never expect to catch them on. It does happen. That's, like I said, what I like about river fishing too. You never know what's going to come by. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get this float rig set up, and we'll try some float fishing and see if I can get any bait fish. Like I said, I have a big one to use. I'd kind of like to use a smaller one because the pike I caught yesterday was really big. And I mean, you'd be surprised how big of a bait fish a pike can handle for its size. But I'm thinking with a smaller one, I have also chances to get maybe a perch. So I try to kind of keep everything possible. Another thing I'll usually do when I have two poles out is kind of switch around with bait. Some days it's working good with worms, some days maggots, some days corn. So I'll keep both options open and kind of, you know, after an hour so I can get an idea of what they're biting on mostly. Sometimes it's a pain in the ass with worms and maggots because you're getting all the little bait fish that you don't want to catch and they're stealing your bait. That's when I'll move to corn or pop-up boilie, especially if the current's stronger, and pop-up boilies are great because they stay on the line for a long time. And I have to say I've had a lot of good luck with them, but not over the summer. They didn't work very good over the summer. I have more luck over this summer with worms than anything, and maggots. And now they're starting to bite more on corn. Corn was useless for me over the summer. I tried it several times and nothing, but over the last few weeks I've had more luck with that. So yeah, I'll continue this in a minute. I'm going to just go ahead and get this float rig set up first. Alright, so I got about 4 bait fish. Nothing as big as I wanted, so one's a little bit better size, the rest are pretty small. I'm just going to keep them alive in this bucket to have for backup, because I'm going to try that big bait fish, I think, in a little bit. But first I decided to try a bit with a cage feeder and worm. So here's one of my favorite rigs. The only time I don't like this rig is when there's a lot of debris in the river. It snags more. That's where I prefer the method feeder. So I got a cage feeder rig here. It's just on one of these little arms here. It helps to avoid tangles. Main line's going through that. So it's a running rig. Then attached to a swivel, which has my hook. And on the hook end, I'm attached to it, I've got a Dendrobaena worm. And here's a fairly large worm hook. And I kind of thread the worm right through the shaft of the hook. And one other little trick is I'll take a maggot and put it on the end. It kind of helps keep that worm on the hook, especially when there's a lot of little fish trying to snag the worm. Another little tip for baiting maggots is you want to find the back end not the pointy end, but this back end here. And don't totally just impale it. I'm kind of just nicking it right through the skin of the back end, because the skin's tough and it'll stay on pretty well, and then it keeps it alive a lot longer, so it's got some movement going. These are kind of, they've been in the fridge, so they're pretty slow right now, but yeah, you can see it's starting to move. But that helps to keep the worm on a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up this cage feeder. So far on the pop-up boilies, I haven't had a single bite, so that's why I decided to try worms a bit. The bait fish were all really close in, all small ones so far. I just heard some bird come out of the water behind me a few minutes ago. I think it was a cormorant. So maybe that's gone. The fish are not going to be so shy. I don't see them too often here, but they are around. And they do eat a lot of fish. Alright, so I got that one set up. I'm going to go ahead and cast this out. Try it for a little while. Maybe I'll switch out the other pole soon and put on a bait fish. See if I can get maybe a pike or a perch.